Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event of the evening. And now, it's time!
What's up, fight fans? Welcome to this edition of East Knows in the first segment of East Knows Combat Sports. I'm East, and today we are covering UFC 285. I love big fights, and I've actually broke down some fights previously. However, this is my first time getting back into it, and yeah, super exciting. And since I love big fights, what bigger fight to do than the return of Jon Jones versus Ciryl Gane. This is going to be super exciting. We got two heavyweights, and Jon is new to the heavyweight division. He's fighting for legacy, pound for pound greatest of all time. So this is just definitely going to be one for the ages. This is one of those types of fights that really just defines the legacy of one man or the other. Ciryl Gane has the chance to come in and knock off Jon Jones, and also claim to be the undisputed heavyweight champion of today. And so it's just a lot of different variables here that make this fight very interesting, fun, and exciting. And I think it's going to be a great fight. I actually do. Definitely a chess match. I don't think it's going to be a barn burner brawl, but definitely a chess match. And if you're into combat like me, you're definitely going to enjoy it. Definitely check out the channel in the future. I love to talk about boxing, MMA, kickboxing, so anything combat sports. If you're a fan, join in with me. So without further ado, let's hop into this tale of the tape. So if you're wondering, by the way, why I waited until now, like basically a day to make the content, basically for a couple reasons. One, I wanted to really get to see how they engage with each other, what the back and forth were going to be, hear more about the mindset of the fights, because that's so important going into the cage. Two, because I wanted to make sure the fight was actually going to happen. I didn't want to see any injuries occur. I didn't want to hear about any, drug allegations. What did Gustafsson say?
It doesn't matter if it's on rocket fuel or whatever.
Right, rocket fuel. So I didn't want any of that type of thing, and then I just wanted, it was important for me to actually see them together, to see the size that Jon had now that he's bigger, and see what they look like standing next to each other. It looks like Jon's a bit taller. I'm not sure if it's the shoes they have, or if Jon's actually 6'4" and Gane's only 6'3", but yeah, he definitely looks a little bit shorter. So the most interesting thing about this fight, the most, the biggest aspect of it is definitely looking into the Jon Jones moving up to heavyweight, right? We've never seen what Jon Jones looks like at 250. There's always been talk about how strong Jon Jones is at 205. And he's very methodical. He's very sharp with his decision making. Like, he doesn't waste movement. It's always like very sharp, one punch here, one knee here, spinning elbow. So even if he's throwing something exciting, it's not high volume. He's just very sharp. And most of the time when people talk about his power, it's in the clinch and the wrestling, which is actually his forte, right? So what does this added strength do, and this added weight do? Does the added weight make him slower, or does it add power to him? Does he have one punch knockout power now? We have no idea until we see the fight on Saturday. However, what we do know is that it should enhance his power when it comes to grappling and from the clinch game. And so I think he definitely will be able to use this new weight for his advantage there, as well as with his reach. Adding to his reach, he has a longer reach than Ciryl Gane. His reach is 84 centimeters. Ciryl Gane's is 81. So therefore, Jon will be able to use his reach and control the wrist, control like the distance. And then when he gets to the grappling situation or takes the fight to the mat, he will be able to just assert himself by using his long limbs and being able to add some power to his already great grappling and jiu-jitsu techniques. So that's going to be very interesting to tell the tape. It's surprising that Jon is still able to just add weight, move up to another division, and still have the longer reach in his first heavyweight fight. I think that's always been a perceived advantage for him at 205. And you know, reach is typically an advantage for a lot of fighters, but Jon really uses it like he's a master at controlling his space. So how he's able to use that reach going into a heavyweight fight to protect himself against true heavyweight power is going to be very interesting. For Ciryl Gane, to tell the tape, we need to look at his reach as well. And they talk about the fact that he's a superior mover. He's a great kickboxer on paper. You know, or if you want to call it like a movie type of movement, he's able to like really bounce. He has a Thai background, but it's not like that stereotypical march that he uses. He's using like a karate or a Dutch style that's more fluid, more movement in and out. And so he's definitely going to have to look to be able to probe with his legs and get in while staying out of harm's way. And we've seen him touch before, we've seen him get hit before, so it's going to be interesting to see how he handles this new power by Jon, or if this power, you know, is really going to be a lot more weight behind his punches, or if Jon's going to, you know, look to just use it to keep a distance and to establish himself. So they're both going to have to establish some different things here. The age is also a very interesting aspect of this. Jon is 32, right? So he's actually in his prime physically and mentally. So he's coming into this fight with the mentality that, hey, I got a chance to do something great, knock off the GOAT. And, you know, he's a gamer. He closes the show. He likes to close the fights. However, and that's great. He has a killer mentality when it's time to take the opponent out. However, he is a nice guy. So we're not sure how he's coming in as far as like, is he gonna have that fire, like that type of that fire that you need to fight a Jon Jones, right? And opposed to that, Jon, who no matter if he's nervous, I think he's gonna come into this fight a bit more nervous because it's different, it's something fresh, and there's a lot of pressure on Jon. So I think when he comes into this fight, he's definitely gonna come out. We're gonna get the best Jon Jones. I don't think we've seen the best Jon Jones since Daniel Cormier. Or Alexander Gustafsson. During those two fights, he had something to prove. He was energized. In his other fights, I don't think he was really excited about the fight. I don't think he took it. I mean, he takes fights seriously, but when you take fights seriously, that could just be protecting yourself. Like, okay, I do enough to win this fight. I do enough to win this round. On to the next, business as usual. But when you have something new, a new opponent, a new weight class, someone that can really hurt you, someone, you know, where you have doubters, where it's that type of pressure there, now you have something to step up to, something new to conquer. So watching him climb this hill, climb this mountain, is going to be very interesting to see how he responds. But usually Jon is very honest about how he reacts when he's nervous. And the guy is a fighter, you know, he's a warrior spirit, and they both are, but they just are warriors in different ways. So it's going to be really cool to see the response of both of them, both of their mentalities approaching this fight, and how they engage in the ring. Unlike other sports, I'm super interested in the narratives and the stories outside. I mean, like, you know, in every sport, the narrative and the personality and stuff comes out, you know, with these team sports. But I think combat is such a pure thing, and definitely the mental warfare comes into play. And talking about their mentality and what they bring to this fight from a mental and emotional standpoint, I would say I actually think Ciryl Gane benefited from Jon being away. And the reason I say that is because with Jon away, he's kind of just been able to fight in his own lane. The press conferences for this fight have like just happened. We haven't actually seen them face to face. We haven't heard them talking much to each other. And I think that's due to Jon being away and just really having to focus on training and not so many press conference or press responsibilities. Jon was already champion. He would have came into this fight already. They would have already been preparing to fight each other. It would have already been announced probably closer to after the last, you know, title defense. And then he would have had a lot of opportunities to get into Ciryl Gane's head.
And Jon is just like, you know, he's very similar to McGregor and Izzy when it comes to the trash talk and the mental warfare. Two examples, we've seen Daniel Cormier, who's very professional, even though he does engage in trash talk. It's usually friendly banter. He's usually pretty composed, and when he faced Jon, it was a whole different Daniel Cormier. He was, we saw a darker side of him. He was saying things that were definitely reminiscent of the streets of Louisiana. Jon Jones brought the Louisiana out of Daniel Cormier. And then another example would be Alexander Gustafsson. If you know anything about Swedish culture, the saying "lag on," and that just means like, hey, you're free to compete. You're free to, you should work as hard as you can. Hey, let's go get it. Let's go achieve and be the best version of yourself. And that if that means being a great warrior, then you go get it. However, you don't do that in an ugly way. You don't trash talk. You don't, try to insult someone's character and all these things. So the fact that Gustafsson really just changed it, he even went against his own culture to engage with Jon by pushing him, talking a little trash, shows how you have to meet these types of fighters on a different level, both in the cage but also outside the cage, and then you have to be able to maintain your composure once you step in the cage, because it follows you inside. So I think it just shows it's important, and I think that Ciryl Gane benefited to endure that with Jon Jones. And when it comes to this trash talk, you got guys like Israel Adesanya, you got the Conor McGregors, and these guys are experts at mental warfare, right? If you look at different opponents for both Conor McGregor, for example, like the difference between Khabib and Jose Aldo, Jose Aldo fed into it. He was definitely engaging in the trash talk, and he was just like really into it. And he even has said himself that he felt like that he made a mistake due to maybe being a bit too aggressive, because he really wanted to knock Conor out. But Khabib, on the other hand, even though he kind of engaged in the trash talk, you could tell he was unfazed. He was just annoyed, and he was like, he channeled that anger into the right way. And as he always says, he smashed them once they were face to face. The mental warfare is just a game changer.
So how do I think this fight's gonna go? This fight's very interesting. I think that, so I'll give two types of ways I think the fight could go, and I'll tell you which one is the way I predict it to go. So first of all, with Ciryl Gane, like we said, he has the advantage when it comes to an aesthetic and a movement as a kickboxer from the stand-up. I think that he could circle around Jon, getting a lot of points, gauging to figure out how to get in, and then once he does, probing with leg kicks and quick jabs. I think that's where he will be able to assert himself, definitely rack up some points, get ahead on the scorecard over rounds while Jon is still trying to figure some things out. And then from there, I think that if he's able to use that heavyweight power that Jon's never actually been hit with, and Jon's gonna be in a bit of trouble there, he could back up, and then once he backs off and tries to recover during that time, that's where Ciryl Gane will definitely assert himself. He'll start hitting him with knees, throwing some flying knees, hitting him with elbows and punches, and looking to close the show. Like I said, I don't think he has one punch knockout power, but he has that type of destructive power that could really hurt someone, and he could definitely hurt Jones that way. So he'll either finish with the ref pulling him off, or he can get a TKO like that, or Jon might have to go to the ground out of pain, and then from there, Ciryl Gane might be able to have some type of submission, likely some type of arm, like a arm bar or some type of Kimura, something like that. So I think that's where he can definitely hurt Jon. Now that's how I think Ciryl Gane could win the fight. However, what I really think will happen is that Ciryl Gane will probably lose to Jon Jones. And the reason I think that, and the way I think this fight's gonna go, is because of Jon's power and his reach. I think during the fight, Jon, who is a genius, is gonna be very methodical about how he approaches the fight. He's gonna use his arms to keep a nice distance. That's gonna be his main defense. With that, he will look to probe. He will throw some jabs to keep his distance. He will control the wrist, often disguising his jabs as wrist control. And then he will also use his infamous knee kicks. So he'll use some front kicks to kick Ciryl Gane in the knee, keeping him at distance, and using leg kicks to take Gane's legs away from him so he can't move as much. So he's definitely going to do a lot of probing, a lot of feints, throwing maybe some sneaky stuff here and there just to really wow the crowd and get the judges on his side. Once he hurts Ciryl Gane, or he makes Ciryl Gane feel his power and Ciryl Gane has to back away, he's gonna go to the cage, put his back to the cage, and there Jon will look to control his wrist, clinch like we talked about earlier. And in that clinch, I believe that's where it's gonna be, where Jon's really able to assert himself. He's gonna be able to hold his elbows here, or excuse me, hold his wrists here, and then be able to fire across with some elbows. He'll be able to throw his knees, he'll be able to lock him up, do a lot of different things. Once he hurts Ciryl Gane there, he'll likely shoot for takedown or look for some type of trip, take him to the mat, and there he will assert himself with basically a dominant ground and pound game. And I believe either the referee will stop it from a ground and pound, or he'll stop the fight from submission, some type of choke. I think Jon will be able to choke him out if he gets into the ground. So one of those two things will likely happen. I don't know how the fights, or when the fight's gonna end. I don't know if it's I can't predict a round just because I'm not sure how their endurance is gonna be during this fight, as well as how fast paced they're gonna come out. Both of these guys are slower paced, right? They like to take their time, figure stuff out, unless they just know that they can win right away. They like it. So since this is gonna be a bit of a chess match, this fight's definitely gonna be a chess match. So with this being a chess match, if I had to predict a round, it would be 4th or 5th, one way or the other. But I really do believe that the scenario laid out for Jon Jones is likely how it goes. So what do y'all think about this fight? How do you think the fight's gonna go? Do you agree with my fight analysis, with my fight prediction? Do you see the fight going a totally different way? Definitely comment. Let's have some discussion in the comment section. I love hearing back from you guys. And definitely comment, like, share, subscribe as usual. This is East Knows. I can't wait to see the results of UFC 285. And thanks for tuning in. See you next time.
Vicious knee to the body and an uppercut. Jones.
Left hand to the body, right knee to the head. And there you go, the youngest champion in UFC history.